Well, we're here with Director Jack Marchbanks as his time at ODOT is winding down. And Director, thanks for the time to sit down and talk to us. But I guess let's take it back to the beginning. When you got here to ODOT, what brought you to ODOT?
Oh my, so much. I've often told friends of mine that I've worked with over the years that we should write a book or maybe do a podcast, stream something called If These Highways Could Talk. We would have a lot of interesting stories to tell. Imagine a time when there were only 2 lanes in either direction between Delaware County and Cuyahoga County. Imagine the North Outer Belt being only 2 lanes in either direction from New Albany or all the way over to Dublin. I-670 only going to 5th Avenue, and US 35 not existing between Washington Courthouse and Xenia. That was our system when I came on board. And we've really, over the years, as a team, ODOT, we've put in place so much wonderful, useful infrastructure that people take for granted. And I'm glad they take it for granted because that means we did it well. And it helps people move from place to place. So I started out with the dawn of the internet. I leave the stage with generative AI. I have this little button called Innovation ODOT. This is to help all of our people get ready for, hey, we're going to be putting computers on all of your desks. Get ready. It's going to be a big change. So a lot I've seen over the years. But one thing has been consistent and has gotten better, and that is pride of performance. People really want to do a good job at ODOT. And I can't tell you how fulfilling and rewarding it was. Just a few months before he left this planet, Jerry Ray told me, I've never seen people at ODOT take so much pride in their work. And that's something that we've built over the years, and I'm proud to have been a part of that.
Director, as someone who's been here for less than 5 years at ODOT, and as someone who would love to continue to grow in this organization, as I'm sure many people do and want to, what is some advice that you would like to give to that generation and the generation to come? I know you take great pride in the STRIDE program that we have here. So what's some advice that you could provide?
Well, Renee, there is so much value to be had in serving an interest that's larger than you. I keep up with the generations. You know, you weren't born when I came here, but that's okay. That energy from the generations that are younger, we all feed off that. And what I've seen and heard is that young people want to make a difference. They want to be a part of something that really improves society. And this is a place where that can be done. It's our mission, an easy movement of people and goods from place to place. Can't get any more basic than that. So doing that, helping mobility be a part of what people expect as a right, as part of their lives, is something that you can do. So I encourage young people who want to make a difference. They can be part of a group of infrastructure professionals that make life better going into the decades to come.
When we started this, you talked about the system as it was when you got to ODOT. And yes. I know over the first several decades of ODOT, a lot of the focus has been on moving vehicles.
Yes.
You referenced moving people.
Yes.
And I know you are focused on that because you're an avid cyclist, an avid runner. Did that influence a lot of that? Why we should be focusing more on active transportation as well as vehicular transportation?
Well, active transportation is critical. It's the first way we learn how to be mobile. Get up, stop crawling, walk, and then if you're good, you can possibly run one day or ride a bike. But that intermodality, the fact that we need to have not just, vehicles moving from place to place, but transit, actually trains. They are part of that multimodal future that we have to have that quality of life I keep talking about. And looking at that quality of life, I talked about with Renee, young people, some of them don't even want to have cars. So we have to provide accessibility for all modes, and that will require us to put more sidewalks, more bike paths, safe separation between pedestrians and cyclists and other recreational trail users, and those vehicles that are still on the road. So I'm happy that we have a robust bike ped program now, because that's part of what we do. It's part of the complete streets approach that we started way back in the late 1990s. We've been believers in that for years. So Yeah, we've built a lot more lanes and a lot more interchanges, but we've also added bike paths and given a greater attention to pedestrians.
And you spoke earlier about how public-facing ODOT is.
Yes.
Can you touch on how being the director of one of the most public-facing agencies, how it's been for you? I know you worked in our District 6 office, which is
Yes.
Central Ohio, still very public-facing and in the spotlight. How has that been for you dealing with that?
Well, I'm flattered by the fact that people know what we do. I'm not so flattered by, the criticisms or the attacks of why are these orange barrels still up here in November? I thought you guys would be done by September. These kind of things, it really rolls off my back. It's kind of funny. I don't take myself seriously in the sense that, no, this is this august position and I'm the director. What makes me laugh is I was actually going to Kansas City just a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going through a security check, and the chief guy says, "That's that ODOT guy. Hey, if you're upset about orange barrels, he's the one." I said, "Thanks. I appreciate that. I'm just trying to get my shoes off so I can get through security." But no, it's part of what you do. And again, to a certain extent, to do this job, all of us as transportation professionals, we have to have a thick skin. People wouldn't talk about this and wouldn't be concerned if it wasn't important to them. So, even criticisms are a form of recognition of the importance of what we do.
We've done a lot of important things since you've been here, not just as director, but your entire time here. Is there anything off the top of your head that's like, maybe this is what I'm most proud of, this is what I hope people remember Jack Marchbanks?
You can't pick one project. That's, which is your favorite child?
I have an answer to that.
I'm sure you probably
You
know.
would. Just kidding.
Well, I hope the other kids don't know. But I have to say, because my wife likes it, wrapping up, it's a small project. It's only 11 miles long. The I-670 Interbelt. When my mentor, Mike Flynn, left District 6 and moved to District 8, he said, "Good luck, Jack. You'll never finish it." And we put together a great team, and we did get it finished. And we also worked with the community, reconnecting the community before that became a vogue term, in terms of putting the I-670 commercial cap above an interstate. To this day, if you walk on High Street in Columbus and you walk across that I-670 cap, you don't know there's a highway underneath. And on top of that, you have one of your best steakhouses in the Midwest sitting on that cap. So that's the only commercial cap. Again, I take it in totality, everything that I've been privileged to be a part of, to have helped lead a great team of leaders. I'm proud of being a part of it all.
I know you touched on the acts of service
Yes.
and how younger people want to make a difference.
Yes.
And obviously you just touched on how you were proud to be a part of all this at ODOT. When you were first starting out, did you have active service in mind, or was it more of just like, I'm looking for a job? How did you picture the rest of your career going when you first started out?
Well, I actually thought I was going to end up working in economic development when George Voinovich came into office. So I was kind of surprised that they said, "Hey, you need to go up to Delaware, Ohio and meet this guy by the name of Mike Flynn." And I ended up being a prototype business and human resource administrator. I was sort of like the first BHRA before it wasn't even a thing. But what intrigued me was what that district, and of course ODOT writ large, did, and how many people were interested and impacted by what we did in terms of improving the infrastructure around them, the environmental aspects, the community involvement aspects, touching families. That all got me intrigued, and I actually had a transportation planning background with my graduate degree at Clark Atlanta University, working on the first light rail system in the South. What it did was open my mind to the fact that this was a rich career with so many different things that you could do within ODOT that it would always be interesting. Some people do kind of like the same thing every day at work. That has to be miserable.
Yeah, I'm with you. I need to have something different every day.
You can't make this stuff up, right, Matt?
Absolutely. Perspectives are always interesting, I think, when you get into a group of people, and obviously we've got 5,000 people at ODOT.
Yeah.
One aspect that I think for you that at least I find extremely interesting and valuable, You talked about 670 and the cap and bringing these neighborhoods together. I know there's been a lot of conversation here over the last several years about the role that interstates played in breaking some communities apart. You have an interesting perspective on that in your own life, and I think that has really helped with a lot of the projects we're doing now where that perspective comes to play. Like, talk about your perspective on that.
I've not spoken a lot about it because it seems like I'm trying to, I'm wearing, a bloody shirt and I'm making myself a victim. I don't believe in any of that. But I just happen to have been born at a time when the interstate system was being built. And actually, my childhood home in Dayton, Ohio, was taken by eminent domain to build I-75. And I remember as a little boy going, standing behind my dad when the quote-unquote highway people knocked on the front door and told him that, hey, we're going to have to take your house. And I'm like, what? So my father said, well, at least they gave me a decent price, not a great price. So when I hear people like Shannon Harden here in Columbus talk about how the interstate system ripped asunder neighborhoods, I know what he's talking about. I know what people are talking about in Cincinnati. It happened across the country. But it was the aftermath of not having political power. If you had political power, you could keep highways away from your neighborhood. It just so happened that many Appalachian and African American and brown communities did not have political power. And that's why these highways ended up going through their neighborhoods and not, the Upper Arlingtons and the Oakwoods of the world. But what we can do, as I've always said, we can make the future better. We can't remove the scar. We can't unring the bell, but we can build back better, to use an overused term. And we are. We've been doing it for years, and I'm proud of the work that ODOT is doing in terms of being more inclusive, listening to people. The community involvement is top-notch, and we are building better projects and reconnecting communities as a result of that.
On that same respect, you just spoke earlier about touching families and how you saw that in your first job or your first stint at ODOT at District 6.
Yes.
Is there in your career one instance where you were with a community or with a local that sticks out in your mind that you were realizing the impact ODOT has?
Yes. I realized that when Brian Hupp and I were working on rebuilding I-70, and this woman came to a public involvement meeting and she said, all that drilling to put down that sheeting you're doing for that bridge, it cracked my rear patio window. And, people rolled their eyes. And we actually went out when they were doing the pounding, and it was rattling her back door wood. So we basically replaced her patio windows. Yeah. On a positive side, one of the things that really touched me is a woman by the name of Melva Williams. She says, you inspired me to go into business as a surveyor. I said, well, don't blame me if your business fails. But what I try to practice and what I see in a lot of you, Renee, is this servant leadership. We're here to serve the community. And when you do that, good things happen. You're not trying to run some, popularity campaign. You're just trying to do good work.
I know you're surrounded by some albums here, and music is a huge part of your life.
Yeah.
Talk about, first of all, why you picked these 3 albums necessarily to display here, and then just about how music has influenced your life and maybe some of your career here at ODOT.
Well, they try to get me up on stage many times. I haven't done it yet. Well, I might do a post-career concert up at Ohio Wesleyan University. I'll invite all of you. But John Coltrane, one of my favorite, he is, a spiritual seeker. He was a lifelong learner, one of the greatest artists, not just saxophonists in the world. As a little boy, I saw Monterey pop. And I said, what? And I actually saw Jimi Hendrix. I could actually identify Brian Jones walking through the crowd. I've always been a rock and roll fan in addition to jazz. I just loved music because I inherited it from my dad, that love of music. Nancy Wilson, Chillicothe's finest, true story. She was singing just a little bit east of where the Long Street Cultural Bridge is now in the 502 Club, pardon me. And Cannonball Adderley, who was playing with Miles Davis at the time, came through Columbus using the train system, and they were saying, you got to hear this woman sing, you got to hear her sing. And Cannonball went into the club, saw Nancy Wilson, and was just gobsmacked and said, hey, you need to come to New York with me. And this album is the result of that. And here's George Shearing. I believe in inclusivity. We don't give enough, I think, acknowledgement to those with disabilities who need to be part of our workforce and need to be part of who we think about. This is George Shearing, a sightless pianist from Britain who happened to be one of both Nancy and Cannonball's favorite artists. So that's the reason I picked those.
Very cool.
You mentioned the Longstreet Cultural Wall. It actually turns 10 here soon. What does that mean to you to have it be 10 years since inception? I know is a passion project of yours, so what does that mean to you?
Well, it lets you know that time keeps going and it stops for no one. It also is very fulfilling in the sense that you have visions and you have ideas, and we're talking about how to reconnect communities. When we started, oh my goodness, we started planning the I-70-71 interchange upgrade and reconfiguration in the Columbus Crossroads, as we ultimately dubbed it. We started the project on 9/11/2001. And, we happen to be recording this, 23 years later on 2024. All the tragedy of that terrible day behind, we continued to work on this project, and actually some of the drawings of how we could reconnect communities, such as the Longstreet Cultural Wall and caps that would go south into German Village, they were all in that room that first day. It means a lot to me. It means that we are actually doing what we said we were going to do when we made those commitments to those communities decades ago, and the great people of ODOT have followed through over the last 20 years.
Well, I know you're retiring from ODOT, and I know, like, you don't slow down on your bike. You are not going to slow down.
I'm not.
What is next for Dr. Jack Marchbanks?
Well, taking care of a lot of honeydew stuff, as they say, for my wife, and want to, of course, refurbish our properties. We own a lot of properties on the east side. I want to turn my dissertation into a book. Very excited about working on that immediately. October 1st, I'll be sitting in my office downtown working on my manuscript. Going to continue to lecture at jazz events across the country and now internationally. Yay me. The exciting thing going on is they'll be sitting down with Amina Figueroa, who's from Azerbaijan, and the South Africa Choir of Orphan Children in Cleveland on the 16th. So these are the kind of things that I'm going to be doing every month. And I'm going to continue to do my radio show. I have a full dance card for the foreseeable future.
What is the wildest thing that has happened to you with your career at the Ohio Department of Transportation?
Okay. Matt's going to love this, and anybody who's been in the media, both of you, for several years. I talk a lot about Jerry Ray, but Gordon Project was a great director too. But stern, straight-laced, straight ahead. No nonsense. That's Gordon. Right around the time I was still in my peak marathon years, we got a request from Andrea Camburn, who was at that point Channel 10 anchor. She said, we'd like to close the North Outer Belt so we can run a marathon on the Outer Belt. We said, what? And she was serious.
Yeah.
And I said, Andrea, I really don't want to ask Gordon Proctor this. But I did, and Gordon gave me an answer, which I cannot, repeat here in front of the cameras. So that's one of the craziest things that ever happened to me in terms of requests.
There's probably been a lot. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Well, as we wrap things up, I guess, I know Renee had asked about some advice for the younger generation of ODOT. I'll broaden that out to the about 5,000 men and women who work in this agency every day.
Yeah.
Any parting words that you would have for them?
Well, what I would share with all those I've been privileged to work with over the years and who are currently here now is show up. Give it your very best effort. If you can say that I did do something that helped keep the system safe, well-maintained, accessible, and positioned for the future, that was a good day. That is my advice for those going forward. And as I say, you get a lot of negative feedback, and unjustified criticism in these jobs, but always take the high road. It doesn't cost you anything to be nice.
Well said.
It's going to be hard not to look in the rearview mirror, but eyes straight ahead, as Jimmy said. Keep on moving, straight ahead.
Well, it has been fun to work with you.
I consider it a privilege of my professional life to have served as director of ODOT. I was just happy to be here when I showed up in 1991 because I said, oh, this is a new arena for me. And to have had the journey I've had over the last 33 years in the private sector and back here has really been life-changing and rewarding beyond words I can share.